This is what she sounds like then. It's been a couple of weeks since I said I could hear something. You can just hear that slight, almost sounds like an alarm clock, like. So either the alternator or the water pump. But I've got the water pump because that's probably more likely the culprit. Because I've actually switched the alternator when I put my pulley on. So although it's not a new alternator, it's off my old truck because it had that other pulley on it. So the other pulley on the other alternator is on another side project. Right then, I got a pump and I got my tools, I got my antifreeze, so I think what I'll do, I'm just about to start work, what I'll do is I'll come out on break, whip the fan off and video that, and then lunchtime I'll change the water pump, put it back, top her up, fill her up with coolant, give her a quick bleed, leave her till home time, and then I can give her another bleed, and then tonight we're going off-roading, so yeah, why not, eh? So car park water pump change, as you do. Just going to bust these 12mm nuts off the fan. So yeah, what you're going to want to do is undo these 4 nuts here, and all I do usually is just put a 12mm ring spanner on them, give them a hit round, and if the pulley spins you can jam something between the belt or tighten the belt up, but usually a ring spanner and giving it a hit, or a ring spanner and a mallet to knock it round, gets them off. If they're real tight and they're fucked, you have to get a cold chisel on them and bang them off. Right then, let's change this water pump. First you've got to take the viscous fan off, and there's 4 nuts holding the fan. One of the flanges of the water pump, and it also sandwiches the water pump pulley on as well. So what I'm going to do is whip these 4 nuts off, and then I'll come out at lunchtime, change the pump I reckon. So first of all, leave the alternator belt tight, get these 4 nuts off the water pump, and then slacken off the belt. Especially not when it's pitch black. So as you can see, my belts are slipping a little bit, so I just push on the belt whilst I crack them off. Not coming off too bad. Sometimes they are real tight, and you'll have to get a ring spanner on them and then hit the spanner with a hammer and knock them around. And if they're totally bollocks, you'll have to get a cold chisel and basically twat them off. Got me 14mm. Go, and if you push down on these belts, alternator comes round, you can get these belts off. So to do the rekon belt, it's much the same really, apart from there's a 10mm tensioner bolt and a 17mm locker. So let's go get 10mm. So usually if you're just changing the belt, you'd thread them through the fan, but as we're going to take the fan off, all we've got to do is undo this last nut and try not to drop it. And then once the water pump's off, guys, I'm going to give it a spin and give it a listen. I think it's a water pump. I could hear something the other day and I said I'd do a water pump video. So here you go, your viscous is off, pull it slightly to the side, because you obviously don't want to damage your radiator. Get it past the studs. And then thread it through the shroud. So now, it's literally a case of doing the water pump bolts. You can yank this pulley off, keep that up there. Oh, she's got a bit of play. She sounds good. Oh no, she don't. She don't sound too good. If you listen, don't know if you can hear that. And if you hold it to the side whilst turning, you can hear there's a bit of a grumble. So yeah, look, it spins freely and all, and it's not leaking from this seal. So when the seal goes in your water pump, coolant will come past it and spill out this little hole here. So yeah. Also while it's probably a good idea to check that your bottom pulley's not delaminated coming off of its hub. So give that a little wiggle. Just get my torch. Ah, and mine is, by the looks of it. So here, look, here's a classic example of old diesels. Got a bottom pulley, and that slides on and off when it shouldn't do. So I need to go down the field after work and grab a pulley and do that. So yeah, I'll change the water pump and everything. Why not? We're in here. And then I'll go down the field and try and buzz this fucking pulley off, I guess. Because you can't keep driving around like that, because if it starts slipping, your alternator will stop charging, your water pump will stop pumping, and you'll overheat the cunt. So, not good. Not good. That'll be what's making the noise. So as you can see, it's obviously having a drive it, like, but it's not slipping or anything at the moment. But when it gets worse, it's gonna absolutely, yeah, fuck up. So what I'm gonna do for the time being to get me home, I'm gonna go grab some brake cleaner and some JB Weld and plaster that bastard in JB Weld, just as a bit of a safety really, because I do not want that on the way home. Steel in a can. Stiff as fuck, I think it's cold. Roger Dodger. Well yes, that is a genuine JB welded pulley. Look at it. And now we're going to change the water pump. So to change the water pump, it's just these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts. Some are bolts, some are nuts on studs. And they're all 12mm. So crack on, do them. So I'll crack all of these off. And I've already checked that the pump comes with a gasket. If not, we'll get some hematite, won't we? But on what car? Because we won't have a water pump. So yeah, basically crack all these off. So pull all these bolts out. Like I say, there's 8 of them. They're not all the same length, so make sure you know where you put them came from. So the short ones come from the right hand side, and the long ones come from the round bit. Let your coolant out. Let all your coolant out. I've got some coolant in the back of the truck. Now I knew I'd use a few litres, but oh look, she's not even rusty. She's not even rusty. Oh. Just proves it that whoever owned this engine before me, before Robin even, because I bought this engine off Robin, just proves whoever had it obviously took good care of it and took regular coolant changes, because look at the inside of that. Fan-fucking-tastic. And yeah, look, YSC, that's an original pump if it's an YSC, but bearings. How clean it is, look. You know the coolant's been doing its job when it looks like that. So I've got a new pump, it's an FAI, part number is WP6361. Comes with gasket, studs, and a pump, obviously. So I'm going to bolt this on. It's a little bit different style impeller on this one. If you have a look at that, you can see the impeller's not as curved, but they're straight teeth on it. That block's not going to need a lot of cleaning up, I'll tell you that. Looks pretty bloody good. Thought I'd better change it, and there's not much daylight when I get home, so there's no daylight when I get home. So I thought I'd do it at work. Gasket out. Sometimes I put like a little smear of grease on either side of the gasket, but I'm not going to worry about that on this. So the smear of grease does help it stay in position. Seeing as there's studs on the block, it's not so much of an issue. You can hook it over the studs, and then we'll just slip her over. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm anal, I'm going to put a little bit of copper slip on these so that they do come out nice, if I ever got to change it again, which probably won't. Right, on second thoughts I won't, because I just remembered I used my copper slip when I was over Charlie's doing his front hubs and everything, and they used it all, finished the tube. So we'll just use a bit of engine oil. Just because it's in alley, you want to lubricate the threads really, don't you? I'm never too fond of putting bolts in alley dry. It's a bit shit. That's what you want to stop basically. When it starts going white like that, that's when it will start corroding and eventually that'll get stuck. And I hear a lot of people probably saying right now, why bother? She's, you know, 14 years old, how much longer are you going to be needing to undo these bolts and stuff? But for fuck's sake, you know, a little bit of care and a little bit of copper slip here and there, you can make it easier next time, because chances are, well hopefully, I'll still be running there in a couple of years time. Hopefully she can make it to 20. Seems like the average lifespan of cars back then in the 90s, 80s and 90s was about 20 years before they rusted out. Now it seems like it's about 10 years before the computer goes wrong or it needs a set of injectors. It seems to me like the cars are getting more economical, but they're being scrapped early, if you like. Cars are being scrapped because the parts are expensive, not because they're broken. Yeah, you look at an old, well, look at an old Austin or something. You think if it's not rusted out, what's the biggest outlay you could go for? It'd be something like a gearbox rebuild or an engine rebuild. But there's nothing to physically go wrong. Like if it ain't got spark, you put a coil in it, or check the gap, the points. Whereas now it could be a coil pack, it could be an ECU, it could be a crank sensor, it could be this and this. And one of those components could be, you know, a few £100. I ain't got the workshop manual on me for torque spec, and I ain't got a torque wrench on me, so I'll just say hand tight. Sensible hand tight. Right, you've only got to clamp that little felt gasket up, stop the water coming out. So I'm going to grab some Loctite after work and Loctite these studs in. No, fuck it, I'll do it now because it'll be dark when I get out of work. I'm going to fill her up with coolant as well, so pop the top hose off to fill it off with coolant, like my other video. Fill her up, bleeder. Yeah. Ta-da! Right. One way to check if your belts are making noise, just slash the water over them. The noise disappears, you know it's your belt. Rightio then, we're at Charlie's and we're going off-roading tonight, but I need to change my bottom pulley. So we're going to whip the spare pulley off Charlie's old engine just for tonight and wang it on mine. So I'm going to gun it off the one on Charlie's engine because obviously you can get the gun in there. I don't know if I'll be able to get the gun in mine, to be fair, because I've still got my radiator and everything in front of the pulley. But yeah, just going to whip the Visco off, I'll try to, so I can get the socket like that on there, like that. So we're just having the bestest time getting the nuts off. Obviously there's no alternator or pulleys or anything on that, so it's just spinning freely. So managed to get one just with hitting it with a chisel lightly. That one took a bit more persuading, and I've still got two more left to do. Look, what a bastard. So if the hexagon fucks up like that, guys, you're going to have to get the chisel on the flange of the nut and bang that one. So here you are, she's off. So get rid of that extension now, right on the crank, and give her a go. You see what I mean about the Mark IIs? This whole outer bit is one piece with the timer marks on it, and it's bonded, all three pulleys, all three sheaths on one inner, whereas the Mark 1s have a solid and then this bit's harmonically balanced. So after giving it just a little tickle, and when I say little tickle I mean fucking absolutely bollocks off it. Look at this. Bear with, there's about 50 million threads on it. Got it. Basically, you have to undo your power steering pipes and pull them out of the way, and then put the breaker bar over there and fucking give it some 5, 6, 20 times, and yeah, that gets it off. Or you can take your intercooler off, your aircon radiator, your cooling radiator, and then get a gun through the front. But that's a bit of work. So what you want to make sure of is that your torch is having a spastic attack, like that. You want to get the mirror in there and turn it so the keyway is facing upwards, because otherwise when you pull that off your keyway might drop, and that's no fun. So yeah, turn that so the keyway's on top and slacken off your belt. So as you can see, new pulley's just gone on. It literally just slides over the end of the crank. It's like a very, very, very slight slip fit, and you can see that all three gangs are solid. Whereas the Mark 1 even though the front's solid, so it's not going to walk off the front and go into the viscous fan like Mark II's do, you can walk off the back and rub against timing case and sump. So in effect it's a bit better, but it's still going to slip and not drive water pump and alternator. You can see that I've welded it together with good old JB, but if you look at that, you can move it by hand. If I get something, yeah, look, I'll do it all cack-handed for you. Look, you just, oh, look at that. Would you just look at it? See, I thought about making some solid ones, but a lot of people say harmonic dampeners on there for a reason. If you don't have it, you're going to snap your crankshaft in half. I don't know if that's true with a 4-cylinder or not. I don't know, but you could easily make some new steel ones at work. Oh my god! See? See? See what I mean? So obviously that has got hot. It's kind of melted the rubber in some places where it's span like there. But you'll probably find on here there'll be a dirty spot where it first broke, and then it kind of ripped it off from there. So that was the last bit to break because that's the cleanest. But yeah, no good.